5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Full course yellow is deployed. Full course yellow is deployed.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome to another edition of Full Course Yellow. It's our Wednesday night get together with the gang from In Pit Lane. All sort of, well, a few of us get together. I mean, Doc is not with us again. Dave Stillwell as well. We've got missing persons out on Dave. We haven't seen Dave for a while. Also, Chris, I haven't heard. I better check. I got some private chat. Okay. We've got We have Mark Jones with us again from the real Emperor of Queensland, but while he is here, we will bring him up in a moment, and I think you'll see or at least hear the problem when I say hello, Mark. How are you? So there you go. So Mark doing his justly famous impersonation. He's informed us via private chat that he has a new headset that uses a plug, not a USB port, and it isn't quite working. So obviously, so we'll sort that out. But Mark will attempt to join the conversation tonight by the power of mime. So we'll get there. But joining us is and I think what he's saying is, wasn't it interesting? Wasn't it good to see Lando Norris win his first Grand Prix last week at Miami? Which has absolutely delighted all of England. I mean, Lando Norris fever is going crazy. They'll probably give him an OBE in very, very soon. Although apparently it wasn't Lando. It wasn't the good strategy from his McLaren team. It was the presence apparently of a Mr. Donald Trump, well-known property developer and jailbird. So he's the one who's responsible. But anyway, yeah. So interesting race in Miami, and Pete Johnson, who does have a working microphone. Pete,
hello.
We had it wasn't a bad time, was it? In terms of waking up and sort of being able to see it. I mean, it wasn't like at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. It was quite reasonable. So I take it you jumped up early and had a look at it.
Yep. I think it appears that because Max Verstappen hit a bollard, and it appears that when he hit that bollard, he might have incurred some damage. And because in the beginning, before he hit the bollard, he was running away with it and had quite a bit of pace. And that
I think it's interesting that Christian Horner said after the race, he said, we're not sort of putting the blame on that, but yes, there was some significant damage there, and that no doubt would have had some effect on him. But it was, congratulations to. It was great. It was great to see, because I think as everybody knows, I mean, it's great to see the domination of a champion and say, yes, I be able to say in sort of 10 years' time, yes, I remember the days of Max Verstappen. I was part of the Verstappen era, but it becomes so predictable, and to have like a few have other people pop up their heads, and as Jackie Stewart always said, he said the first win is the hardest. It gets much easier from there on. So now that he's actually broken through and got that first win, the monkey's off his back, and he can get on with it now and sort of say, well, I can do this. I'm not going to sort of dive, spin off at the last second, or have some major mechanical problem. I can actually lead, and I can actually win a race. So it was a good thing. What do you think of Miami in general? Seemed to be very successful again. Once again, $300 lobster rolls and all that sort of stuff, and all sorts of
silly boats. Yeah, I've never liked that.
No, it makes it makes it a little bit cheap. I think it's but then it's Miami. I mean, that's the sort of thing. Let's welcome a few. Let's welcome a few of the regulars. There you go. Trump gave Norris the confidence to win. So there you go. It's interesting because the FIA have always said, we don't want to be involved in politics. No politics. They jumped up and down for a while when Lewis and Seb Vettel was sort of saying things like Black Lives Matter and gay rights and pride and all the rest of it, saying, "Oh, we don't want no room for politics." But they were, they seemed, quite happy to. The FIA president was there, and the head of Liberty Media was with Trump, and he broke into his very busy court time at the moment, and to pop up and say hello to Lando, and McLaren sort of opened him with welcome arms, where apparently some of the other teams didn't. Apparently, it was sort of said to a couple of teams, Mr. Trump would like to know it. Rather not. But anyway,
And
Pete.
And I find it a little bit distasteful that Congress is getting involved in the Andretti thing.
Did I hear something broke through there in terms of sound? Mark, are you with us?
You did. I think I am. I can troubleshoot. I can IT.
In the words of Al Jolson, ladies and gentlemen, you ain't heard nothing yet. How are you, Mark?
I'm quite well, I think. I thoroughly enjoyed the Miami Grand Prix. I thought that was quite a lot of fun to watch. There was lots of things going on. I think if I can break away from what the goings on at the front of the field and discussions of politics, I think I'm now having a memory fail. Which Haas driver was it who is now facing? K-Mag is now facing probation because he's only got 2 points left on his license and maybe a holiday.
Yeah, that's an effort in such a short period of time. I mean, and now they're sort of saying, we need to change these rules pretty quickly because it could be a bit embarrassing if it's sort of within a few rough before the first quarter of the season is even finished. One of our drivers is suspended because of going over the point.
Well, see, there's a chain of because we. With the weekend having just been, of course, it was May the 4th on Saturday, and we saw that the 4th was with Daniel on Saturday, and then Lando took revenge on the 5th, and now we see K-Mag is in danger of becoming. I had a third stage to that joke, and it's gone now.
Don't you love it when you set it up and then you go, "Oh, hang on, no, that didn't work." That didn't work. I was trying to get there myself actually, but I'm not a Star Wars fan, so I was trying to get through my mind. Hang on, what's the Ewoks something? I don't know what was it. It was Revenge of the. I got the Revenge of the.
There was
one.
Yeah, and International Star Wars Day is May the 4th, as in May the Force be with you.
And that's the only bit of the joke I got.
Yeah.
So I can't think of the rest of it. If our mate from In Pit Lane crew, Darren McAuliffe, was here, I'm sure he'd come up with something because he's a very big Star Wars person.
Yes, that's right. I've got it. I remember it now. Yeah, because if Kevin Magnussen is facing a suspension next time out, we could see Haas solo from.
Look, it was worth waiting for. Well done.
I'm not
from Nico Hulkenberg.
And I'm not a Star Wars fan, but I got it.
Yeah, no, I think that's well. So yes, well done, Mark.
That was tortured, I have to say.
But Daniel did very well.
Microphone's working now.
Jared pointing out, Daniel's P4 instrument. I mean, he showed like if he could get it up there in terms of his defensive driving and his racing, his racecraft is still very good. Unfortunately, it obviously didn't roll over into the main event, but I suppose. It has to give him. I mean, Pete, what do you think? Do you think it'll give him a sense, some more confidence now to go? Yeah, I can still do this. If everything goes right.
I think it'll give him confidence, but I wonder why there was such a dramatic change between then and the race when
Oh,
you're allowed to or qualifying when you're allowed to make changes between the sprint race and the qualifying. I wonder if RB are a bit trigger happy and they make changes.
Well, Daniel said that they didn't. He said it was, he said that wasn't, but he just said he couldn't get. He said the tyres, he just couldn't get them to work at all. He said he couldn't get them to hook up in qualifying at all. So that put him behind. And he already had a penalty as well, so they put him right at the back. And he sort of moved up slowly within They pulled off a couple of good passes and got up there. I mean, congratulations, well done to his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. Got up to what was 7th, I think he finished in the end. So that was really good. That was really good for Yuki. Oscar Piastri had some problems and finished back in the pack a little bit. But I think Daniel and the team will be very, very happy, because I think the thinking within Red Bull is that they would really, really like Daniel to start showing a bit, because I think that if push comes to shove, I think that Red Bull would like to put Daniel in the car for next year, but it would be hard to do if he continued on the nightmarish path he's been going on. It'd be very, very hard to especially overlook someone like Liam Lawson. But at the same time, I mean, you've got to wonder. I mean, is Liam Lawson going to be one of those people, one of those forgotten people who's going to be skipped over, and he's going to be in years to come. Possibly the best New Zealand driver never to race Formula One. If he'd have got into Formula One, he could have done all sorts of things.
Strictly speaking, he has raced Formula One, but point taken.
And he did very well. I mean, under the circumstances, he did extremely well.
But the problem, I guess, I mean, the flow-on effect from there is, what does that say about what level of confidence Red Bull has in Liam Lawson, that they believe that Ricciardo is a better option if Daniel can get his mind in the right place? I guess they're saying that, they're kind of almost saying that, well, yeah, Liam's good, but we don't think he's going to be a Grand Prix winner.
I think they're also putting, as we've mentioned before, I think the whole marketing side of the fact that they are a soft drink company, and Daniel is such good media. I mean, I don't know. I mean, yes, we've interviewed. Liam was on the show. We talked to him in his Formula 4 days here in Australia. We got up with him, and he was a nice kid back then, and seems to be a nice guy. But Daniel's Daniel. I mean, Daniel's a personality, and certainly in a lot of the world. I mean, it's not just the public that love him. I mean, the media love him. His fellow competitors. I mean, we saw when he sort of came back. The people lining up and clapping, from other teams, and just everybody was absolutely thrilled to see him back. So he's a very, very popular young man, and I think that that obviously counts for something with a company.
The times I've seen him interviewed, like at the Adelaide Festival, he took his girlfriend around the streets of Adelaide in that super ute or whatever it's called, and yes, he commentated and everything, but he didn't have the jokes, he didn't have the humour that Daniel has.
Yeah, I mean, and you can't sort of, you can't fake that sort of thing. I mean, you either got that sort of personality or you can't. And there's nothing worse than, getting somebody who just doesn't have that sort of, that sort of personality, and trying to make them into something they're not. I mean, it just doesn't work, no matter what the sport went on. Marcus said, give Ricciardo the car he wants. He's a bad guy in the mainstream. No, I don't think he is in the mainstream. There's idiots on the. I think there's plenty of keyboard warriors on the internet who want to have a go at him. I mean, and we cop that ourselves. I mean, every time you say something good about Daniel, it's like he's washed up, he's finished. Come back to Supercars. That's all you're good for. And that's what he showed on. That's probably a good thing that he showed on the weekend. That no, I mean, give him the right car and the right conditions, and he's still a damn good racer, and he's still got what it takes. He probably just needs a run of a good run of luck now to get back and not have some of the things that went wrong with him, because I think you can have a run of bad luck, and that's obviously part of what's happened with Dan for a while now. But it was good to see him. It was good to see him get that fourth place and to keep it so well. It wasn't a fluke. I mean, he had to work. He had to work damn hard to keep that positions, and he did, and he did it very well. He did it with a lot of craft and a lot of racecraft, and well.
We saw in there afterwards the Carlos Sainz congratulated, said very nice things about Ricardo and to the effect that how much he enjoyed the battle he had with Daniel, and that it was such a clean battle.
And we've heard that from other people. We heard Fernando was, I really enjoy racing because, I know what I'm going to get from him. He's not going to do anything. He's usually not going to do anything stupid. They had some great tussles in the past, and Fernando's always said that, he rates Daniel very highly, and I think Lewis has also said similar things. So he's well respected within the Formula One community, and I think that there would be a lot of people both inside and outside of Red Bull and outside of Australia who are pushing for him. So let's keep our fingers crossed, because I think he's good for Formula One. I think it's a much friendlier sort of environment when Daniel's around.
And the Australian mainstream media, they love to knock down Australians not doing so well. But also, like I heard a newsreader on the radio called Andre Newey, the other day. I mean, really and truly.
Yeah, you get that all the time. I mean, it's not just in motorsport. I mean, where you get it a lot, and Mark's probably heard with them. We now have a lot of our television news is. Particularly on places like Channel 10, a lot of the television news now and some of our radio news is networked out of Sydney. And you'll be watching something and you'll suddenly meanwhile, a major crash in the Melbourne outer eastern suburb of Cranbourne and in Pakenham. And it's like, whoa, where did all these... They get the pronunciations hopelessly wrong. And it's like, you have no idea what you're talking about, do you? So, and I think that's the same. It's one of the things in, like when we've had, news readers in the past on the show, we want to give people, we've had, lots of journalism students and all that at RMIT will say, I really want to be a journalist and I'd like to read news on the show. And you put them in front of an auto cue and they're fine until you get up to, like the names of cars and names of... Meanwhile, at the Malala Historics,
Malala,
and B Runner, the racing in the B Runner, and it doesn't
Renault.
Well, I mean, I remember a poor Glenn Ridge one day at the Melbourne Motor Show absolutely mangled Peugeot and copped it all day. For it was like Peugeot or something. It was
Peugeot.
Like really,
oh, that's not bad.
Yeah, really made a mess of it, and just
See, I still want to know though why these bats are hurting.
Which ones are these?
Why these bats are hurting with this whole thing about Bathurst.
Oh yes. Well, the other one is Jeremy Clarkson, Bathurst. This is a car that ran very Bathurst.
Well, that was, I mean, to be fair, that was how Alan Moffat used to pronounce it.
Yeah, he did actually. Yes. Yeah, it's funny. I was actually listening to a podcast the other day, and the guy was talking, and something came up about Australia, and he said, I love Australia. He said, so you have friends watching in Melbourne, and someone said Melbourne, and he goes, no, No, he said, I did that. I said that once.
Look, to be fair, I mean, I'm still get names wrong all the time. You know, the new competitors come into Queensland racing, and I haven't had a chance to say hi to them yet. And it's it's humbling going around at lunchtime saying, "Look, I'm sorry. I'm sure I got it wrong." How do you say
that.
it?
I was doing stuff. I mean, it was colder a couple of weeks ago, and they had there were lots of names. They had to keep saying, "I'm sure I'm saying that." You know, my apologies to whoever it was that was, because I was sure I was messing there. If you want to sort of some evidence of that, watch tomorrow night's edition of In Pit Lane, where once again I'll absolutely destroy the Super GT report from Fuji. I mean, I have so many reads to try and get those names right, and I'll go on and get your Japanese. How do you pronounce this name in Japanese?
You just need to watch more anime.
Yes, well, probably, but well, I watch enough, Japanese wrestling and all of it. So every now and again, I'll get someone who's a wrestler, and I'll be able to say, "Oh, yes, I know what Kensai Fujinami. Yes, oh no, I know that name. That one I can do." But since I see another one that go, "Whoa!"
But how do you get Andre out of Adrian? I mean,
it may have been. Look, there are no proofreaders in the
that's a bit
in the game anymore. So
it's a bit Ron Burgundy, If it's on the auto cue, he'll say it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we had that on the show last week, didn't we, Pete? Or the week before, we got there where sort of we had it was just the auto cue kept going, and Doc kept reading.
We had a veterinary trolley and Michael Rowland moment.
Yeah, so it was just as well. There was nothing bad there, but you can. I mean, if you can get caught in, even when I do the reads for the news. I mean, I'll put the script on the computer and I'll read into here. And if I've made a mistake, if I've made a typo or something, I'll know it's there. But I'll often read it and go, such as, oh, hang on, no, that's not right, and I'll have to go back and start again after I've because you just automatically read what's on the screen. So whatever. But anyway, that's,
mind you, it is entirely possible that the United States is indeed stranger than it's ever been.
Yes, well, and that's hard. That's very
stronger?
hard to. No, stranger. I think that's.
There's a West Wing line anyway.
Yeah, but anyway, that was the Miami Grand Prix, and they'll be going back to America for a couple more visits later in the year. It got the highest ratings in America that the Miami Grand Prix has ever had, so the popularity of Formula One continues. I mean, it's coming off a low base, but it was still very encouraging. So it looks like they're just in terms of the US government getting involved. Pete, you mentioned about the government getting involved in the Andretti thing. I think they've sort of got it because it's similar to Australia. I mean, they do have antitrust laws over there, and quite clearly, what's happening at the moment is in breach of antitrust laws. It's like I used to say about what was happening with S5000 over here with them stopping drivers getting involved in supercars. It was and saying, oh no, you've got to go through Super 2, otherwise you can't go into supercars. That is clearly third party enforcement. You can't do it. Yeah, it's a restraint of trade, and that's what they're saying at the moment. They're saying, hang on, you've got Andretti. They've got the backing. They say they've got the backing. They say they've got the support of General Motors. They've got the support of the FIA. There's absolutely no reason at all why they shouldn't be involved. And if it causes problems for the market by taking slicing up the pie a little bit smaller, well, and that's the nature of the business. That's free enterprise, and that's the way it's got to work. So if Andretti goes in there and becomes successful, and because of Andretti's success, another team sort of falls over or has some problems, well, that's not Andretti's fault. So I think it's going to be hard because now this is the problem with Liberty Media now in charge, and they'll in terms of the day-to-day running of things, they are an American company, and they'll be subject to American law. And American law, as we know, can be very, very different from very, very different from Europe.
Whereas a few books I've been reading at the moment and articles, Bernie was subject to no law.
Well, very much so. I mean, it was very much sort of, like it's the boys' club over there. You know the right people, and it was a free pass, but it's not going to be quite the same in the US, especially if Americans think that they're being dudded by these communists in Europe, that the godless socialists are stopping our boy, our all American boy, getting over there and showing them how to do it in Formula One.
Or
they're
maybe
going to be upset.
Maybe Andretti can get on to McLaren about those 5 races they owe him.
Yes. Well, that's the thing. I mean, apparently Zach Brown is one of the few of the current team managers, and McLaren is one of the current teams that are saying, no, we're happy to have Andretti. And I believe Alpine have also said that, no, we're happy to welcome them. But pretty much everybody else is saying, no, we have plenty. And it's like what they're doing with supercars as well. Supercars are currently having a look at their system at the moment in terms of this is the problem of adding more rounds. I mean, I've got in the thing, in terms of supercar news, apart from rumours, and that's all they are, rumours of Erebus, being sold. There's no supercar news at all. I mean, it's like any momentum that the series had has just absolutely died, because we had that big gap between sort of Albert Park and Topor, and then now we've got another huge gap between there and Perth, and we'll eventually get and then towards the end of the year we'll get things will roll over a lot more rapidly.
Yeah.
And we'll get a bit of momentum. But right now, there's absolutely zero to talk about in terms of supercars. It's like, there's no news. There's no new drivers, no new teams, no testing. Remarkable.
We've kind of run out of Bathurst seats to make announcements about.
Yeah, so that's another thing. I mean, that's why you're seeing the things like the Erebus rumours, because the problem is if you're in a situation like a Speed Cafe or Auto Action, where you
need content.
What's that?
You need content.
Yeah, that's it. You can't operate in a vacuum. I mean, and they're trying to sell or trying to push as many viewers as they can, or as many views as they can get. And we know ourselves. I mean, whenever we have formula, whenever we have supercar related stuff or supercar related guests or supercar related stories, we get much higher ratings. I mean, they can almost double. So whether people like it or not, supercars still do draw the big crowd. But try getting them. That's another thing altogether.
It is really our national category, really.
Yeah, for better or worse, that's in terms of what most people see as being motorsport in Australia. If you say what is motorsport to anybody, or name a racing driver, they're going to say, oh, that's supercars, or they're the cars that race at Bathurst, or name a racing driver,
Craig Lowndes.
Well, possibly. I mean, nowadays they might, you might get Dan Ricciardo or Oscar Piastri.
Or Shane Van Gisbergen.
Well, Shane Van Gisbergen, the famous Australian racing driver. Shane Van Gisbergen. Even in America, they're still calling him an Australian. I think Scott McLaughlin, after his win at Barber, was somebody who said, great win to the young Aussie, and it's like, no.
He was less pedantic about that than Shane is, because I remember. In Australia, when he came back from New Zealand after COVID, Jess Yates asked him a question, and she said something about what's it like to be back home in Australia, and he said, well, first of all, Australia's not home, New Zealand is.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you can see that it's like calling a Canadian an American. I mean, they get very upset about that. You can see why. So, there. So apparently, yes. So Erebus still need a co-driver. So yeah. So
Yes.
who have we got there? Obviously, we got Todd and Brody in one car, and then Jack LeBrock, and we don't have anybody for alongside Jack, do we?
No, because I forget his name. I've just had a mental block.
David Russell.
Yeah.
David Russell was down to drive with them, I think.
And then he left shortly before Brody came back, which
Well, I think
there's another one who's gone. Who's gone.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I suppose that but they've got drivers in their so-called academy. I mean, sort of running in Super 2 with Terry Wyhern and all. So I imagine they'll have no problem sort of filling that seat with somebody that they can pop in there. But I haven't I'm not sort of keeping up on the Super 2 thing. I mean, it's hard enough keeping up with the main event rather than sort of watching Super 2. I know that like they've got a couple of talented drivers who probably need to go, but it'll be
David Russell's down with Premier to co-drive with James Golding.
Yeah, which will be I think will be a very good pairing actually. I mean, the thing about David Russell, he's a good solid hand. I mean, he's one of those drivers. He's he's like a Garth Tander or somebody like that. He's just one of those drivers that you can put in the car and say, go out, do your stint, be competitive, and you're going to get the car back sort of, in most cases, in a good condition a bit later on. He's not going to do anything silly. He's not trying to make a name for himself. He's not trying to prove that he's going to be the next big thing. He gets out there and he does his job and does it professionally. So, and I think that they'll be very good. I think in general, I think Premier are going to be a team that you should increasingly watch, because Peter Ziberis is not a person who just sits back and is prepared to sort of get involved in this for the sake of getting involved. I mean, he's a racer himself in the world of drag racing. He's been very, very successful. So he's not playing in this. I mean, he's in there to win. So yeah. So Box is saying, Box is saying, bring Andretti in on a graduated point system, pay on 10% of points in the first year until 100% in year 10. I don't think it's the points that they're worried about. It's just basically, I suppose that depends on the money, but that's what everybody's whinging about. It's like, suddenly you're cutting instead of cutting the pie, in 10 slices, you're cutting it into 11 slices. It's like I said with the pizzas the other night. You want to cut into 8 or to 6. Well, cut it into 6 because they can't eat 8. So
yeah, and teams will get less revenue, and that's all they're worried about.
Yeah, and that's what they're concerned. That's what they're concerned about. But then they're saying, like if Andretti comes in, and especially when GM join them in a few years' time, the appeal of a successful American, hopefully successful American, General Motors team, taking on the world, is going to do a lot for to continue the growth of Formula One in America, and then the pie gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Suddenly, because they're already saying, we could easily have 4 races in the United States. That wouldn't be a problem. There's a few states and cities that have put up their hand and said that they would like to. They'd like to run a race. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to sort of grow, but it doesn't look at the moment. I mean, everything's so stable. You could always say in the past, well, such and such a team's going to fall over, but they're not at the moment.
No.
But anyway.
Well, that stability has led a bit to a bit of stagnation.
Yeah, and I think it's the same with Supercars with the driver situation. I mean, there's nowhere for young drivers to move into, and that's why you're seeing increasingly people like Nathan Hearn is heading off to Spa to race at Spa in a Lamborghini. We've seen
well, good on him.
Yeah, which is fantastic. Which is absolutely fantastic, because he's a very talented young driver. He's got lots of talent, and he can't get a supercar driver. We've seen some of the young guys who are in both Trans Am and Trans Am and TCR. I mean, they're struggling to get the places to race. Interesting enough that at the next round of the at the bend of the Trans Am, Brody Kostecki will be alongside of Todd Hazelwood in. He's got in a new Trans Am, so he's going to run a Mustang for TFH in the Trans Am series. So Brody's behind, and that sort of makes you go, I wonder what they're planning in the future. So they're saying they're not buying Erebus, but who knows? And Chris is joining us again. G'day, Chris.
Hello. I'm still here, aren't I?
You are. You're back. You're back again. You've had. How are you? Well, you're frozen at the moment, so you're right. So how have you been?
Not bad.
This
that's
is good.
Fine,
So
not bad.
Yeah, that's Mark saying TA2 smash them up Derby. Yeah, the thing is they can smash them up a bit. This is the thing; they're not fragile. They're made to. They're a bit like NASCARs. They're sort of made to take a bit of bump and grind more than the supercars are, and they put on some great racing. And you certainly know in the like when the TA2 cars came out at Phillip Island, the crowd. And it was a good crowd that they got there. The crowd sort of, they hit the fences. It wasn't a time to go, yes, no, we'll take a break now. We'll, because we're only here for TCR or something. No, as soon as the TA2 cars came out, the fences were pretty packed. Yeah.
Well, it's not as bad as. Sorry,
Pete.
It's not as bad as when they used to do reverse grid racing with the supercars. Or the V8s as they were known then. It's not as bad as that. That was real smash 'em up derby in a farce. The TA2s aren't that bad.
Dash for cash.
Yeah, it was. Yes, Mark. Yeah, Will Brown is going to USA racing for Richard Childress Racing. That Brody was supposed to be racing, and looks like he will have the backing of a Mr. Peter Adderton with the. Boost, whatever they're calling these, his American version, something X, that's Mobile X. He will have that backing, so it's very much Kostecki out and Brown in. So clearly there was money coming in from Adderton. There was probably money coming in from Erebus for Brody to have the drive with Childress Racing, and then of course and possibly from other sponsors like Coke or the Shaw and Partners and all the rest of it. That's obviously fallen through now. So the money is money's obviously going with Will Brown. So he's done very well out of it. Well, Cam Waters of course raced in the truck series on the weekend, finished 19th. The man who finished 18th. Was not happy with him. Let him know at the end of the race, and Cam was sort of what's your problem, pal? But he got very upset.
Cam can be a bit, unimpressible sometimes. Like anything can be like orders off a duck's back, sort of. Yeah, and how does that affect me? Kind of. And kind of.
Well, he seemed to be doing the right thing. I mean,
so
he went to this guy, to this Lyle, I forget his last name, but he went to him and sort of, said, he's going up to sort of say, "Oh, sorry, mate, sort of, I bumped into you on the last lap. He got a bit loose on the inside and just bumped into this other guy." But this, he was really upset about it, and somebody from the team came in and sort of, pushed them apart and said, give it a break. And Cam was just, whatever, mate. I don't know what the problem is at your end, but good on you. And just went off. So he was very casual about it. But as he said it was just something so totally foreign to the way that, things are done here. You might have a few words, but this sort of, push and shove and boys have at it attitude that they've got in NASCAR, he said, is a bit much to get in. But that's what Shane likes at the moment.
A punch up is good for the sport.
Well, it's certainly good for ratings. I mean, that's the that's the thing. A good, bit of a blue is always, always goes down well for with the NASCAR boys. So there you go. What else have we? What else have we got to go? Oh yeah, that's IndyCar. Tim Cindric, the
and
big,
the rest.
and a few others, but Cindric is
Yeah,
like the
4
big
suspensions
name.
all told.
Yeah, the captain has sort of turned around and said, no, we're going. This is for the push to pass issue that they had sort of at the start of the year, where they had some, there was something a bit dodgy in the software there, and they had sort of extra push to pass when they weren't supposed to have it. And Joseph Newgarden and Scotty McLaughlin both got done. Will Power had it, but apparently didn't use it like at the start because he knew he wasn't supposed to. But he said, I didn't know much about it. And I said, I think that both Joseph and Scott got off, relatively free. But there's a really good interview. If you want to have a look, go into racer.com and check out Marshall Pruitt's interview with Roger Penske. Roger gets a bit terse at times, sort of protecting his position, but he basically says, look, this is it's a really, really big thing. Suspending them for a month is one thing. It's that serious at the best of times. The problem is he's suspending them for the month of May, which of course is the biggest month. It's the India. So Cindric and these four, the four of them, these 4 senior staff, 4 very experienced staff at Team Penske are going to miss the biggest race of the year. By far, it would be like sort of, like suspending somebody, for Bathurst and saying, okay, you're going to have
grand final.
Or the grand final. So, they he could have turned around and sort of had a suspended sentence or something like that. But no, to his credit, Rogers turned around and said, no, you did the wrong thing. You were responsible. You should have known that was not on, and we're going to give you a bit of a holiday. And Tim has put his hand up and said, no, I probably deserved it. I sort of saw the loop, thought there was a loophole there, and drove through it, and probably shouldn't have.
And it's and there's collateral damage out of all of that because even though Will Power wasn't suspended or he wasn't disqualified. He got a 10-point penalty out of the race, but Newgarden and McLaughlin both got disqualified from that race. But the suspensions means that Will loses his engineer for his strategist for the Indy 500 because, of course, some of the senior staff at Team Penske are also strategists or engineers with some of the race programs. So they're so that takes them out of. So it takes. They're not paper pushers. These guys who've been suspended. These are guys who are in and amongst the running of the teams and on top of their management roles that they are also right in at the coalface of running the race cars at the race meetings. So Will unfortunately loses his strategy. He's running high in the points as well. He's second in the point score. So he's
openly come out and said that I think I can win this. He said my confidence is back. I'm in a really good position. I'm in a really good place. I think that I can. I think I can win this one again. I think I can get up and I can win the series. And I can win Indy again. Yeah. So he's got plenty of confidence.
His second title was just 2 years ago, and it was part of a change of approach for Will in IndyCars because Will was always one of the fastest drivers in IndyCars, and he's now the all-time greatest pole scorer. So you can make the case that Will is the fastest IndyCar driver in history, but he made that change 2 years ago, and was less about the speed and more about the accumulation, and it rewarded him with the championship the first time he tried it, and now he's back into that same zone again.
Yeah, so that'll be so obviously coming up. I mean, I imagine that with the month of May, things should be kicking off sort of this weekend. And the good thing about that is IndyCar are very very good with their media, and we'll be getting certainly stuff to show on In Pit Lane over the next month. I mean, you pretty much get a video package from them every news package from them every single day. They've already sent out the media guide for the Indy 500, which is very impressive, and it's the sort of thing that supercars should do. It's the sort of thing that every category should do. And I've said for years that whether you're supercars or whether you're sort of sports sedans in the Victorian or Queensland State Series, whatever, just put together a basic media guide. It doesn't, it's not rocket science. It's very simple, and it makes our job. I mean, you'd agree with that, Mark, as a commentator up there. If you had, like something from each category, you could go there and you could just flick over and say, oh, and this marks the 20th anniversary of such and such a driver in sports sedans, and if you got all that, that stuff about the history of the driver, the history of the car, a little bit about him. It's like, it's interesting. When he's not racing, Fred Nurk is in fact a rocket scientist.
Well, yeah, the month of May basically has already begun, because the Indianapolis Grand Prix is this weekend, so they're in the midst of. Tomorrow will be starting practice, I imagine, for the road course version of the Indianapolis weekend, and then after that, they're straight into the practice sessions for the 500.
Practice and qualifying. Just Mad Cow Mark just pointing out that John Force turned 70 this week. Has won has won all this year. I mean, still winning finals, still making finals. One of the great characters of drag racing. Like if you get the opportunity, just catch up with an end of race interview with John Force at any of the NHRA things after he's had a major victory. He's quite the character, John, and of course his kids have done pretty well as well, in Courtney and Brittany and that. So John, a funny car legend, drag racing legend, and of course has raced in Australia back in the day, raced up at the Winter Nationals up at Queensland. Interesting, the Winter Nationals, the biggest Winter Nationals are now the biggest drag racing event, single drag racing event in Australia now, and they're still confident that there's going to be no problem. But they've been doing major track work up at Willowbank. They're grinding the surface to get it down to make it get it nice and flat again. And they brought out an expert and some equipment from the United States, some very specialized equipment to make to get the track preparation absolutely spot on. And unfortunately, there's been a problem with the equipment, and also the guy who runs it has had to go back to America for some other things. So that's been delayed at the moment, and they're still saying, look, it'll be okay. It will be okay for the Winter Nats. It will, trust us. Everything will be fine. But they're sort of cutting it. They wouldn't want too much rain up there, I imagine. And we know there's been a shitload of rain in Sydney. What's it been like up there, Mark?
Got a window over there, and it's raining right now.
Right, yeah. Yeah, well, I must say that we've had absolutely no. The days have been beautiful, and nice blue skies and no rain, and I don't think there's even any forecast of. Don't think there's even any forecast of rain for Saturday.
I think somebody's kicked the hinge in the middle of the country, and now we've got your weather and you've got ours.
Yeah, well, certainly for winter, certainly for this time of year. I mean, it's usually sort of it starts getting wet down here, and it starts getting dry up there. But that's not the case this time.
Well, this is time of
hugely.
Well, this is time of year when all you guys come up here to race, where it's too cold to race at home. I know we'll go to Queensland, and then on the way to Darwin.
Yeah, well, I think that's. I think there are some people actually heading up there. Certainly, like a lot of the drag racing people will be heading up there because we've We've got the racing up in Sydney. That was delayed because of the forecast, and that's not happening this weekend. It's happening next weekend. The National Drag Racing Championships, the Nitro Championships, happening up at Sydney Dragway. So hopefully that'll be good. And then from there on, people from the south, whether they're from Victoria or South Australia or anywhere, it will sort of move up from Sydney straight up to Willowbank for the winter nat. So in most cases, I would think, rather than sort of coming all the way back down and heading back up again, and then possibly heading over for the triple threat at Hidden Valley as well. But yes, coming up this weekend at Winton, Super Trucks and the Victorian Motor Racing Championship. Interesting. I don't know. I'm going to try and get this guy on the program. I don't know if you saw it, Pete. The former motocross champion had a bad accident relatively recently, just 2 years ago. Put him in a chair for life, and so he's going to race in Hyper Racer. They've fitted out the Hyper Racer for him with hand controls and all the rest of it, and so he's going to move from 2 wheels to 4 wheels and get involved with Hyper Racer. And apparently, in his first time out in a race car, and of course, first time out using all the hand controls, apparently was very, very competitive. So. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see. They've got a pretty good field for that as well, and the trucks always draw a big crowd up there. There's not many of them around nowadays, but you know that up at Winton, the moment the trucks come, it brings out all the locals. It's like, the bloody trucks are back, you beauty. Winton Historics, wet or dry. They're usually cold. I know that. I will be up there. I'll definitely be up there this year. Haven't done the May Historics for quite a few years, and thought, no, I really must get up there this year. Now I don't know whether it's been officially announced yet, but if you can't get up there, if you're interstate or something, chances are you'll be able to watch it. That's all I can. I don't think anything's been officially announced, but that's probably going to happen, which would be fantastic, because it's a great little meeting, because they run on the short circuit. It's both 2 and 4 wheels, so you get some great and 3 wheels, of course. So you get some great motorcycle action, some terrific old bikes, and they concentrate the Austin 7 club. The meeting concentrates more on the really older stuff. They're not sort of like it's not Formula 5000. Group C races and all the rest of it. It's basically older cars from the 40s and 50s and even earlier. So it's a really, really great. There, Mark sort of saying, remember when racing trucks ruined racetracks? They certainly did at Sandown. I remember John Davison absolutely white hot with rage after the one truck meeting that they had at Sandown, and the damage that it caused, because they didn't own the track, of course. As it is now, it's still owned by the Melbourne Racing Club. I think in those days it was the VATC, Victorian Amateur Turf Club. And suddenly after the trucks, they copped they destroyed fences, they ripped out curbs, they did all sorts of terrible things to the track, and Davo was absolutely white hot with rage and went, those things are never ever getting back. So really, about the only place they do seem to race now is Winton. Turnaround between races at Winton is impressive, but they've always been good at that at Winton, even when they're using both the circuit. There are some meetings where for some races they'll use the short circuit, for some they'll use the long circuit. And they turn that over in extraordinarily fast time. I mean, they've got it down to a really fine art. They're a very smooth. There is very smooth operation up at Winton. You can say what you like about it, but they really do turn things over very, very well.
We've pretty well practiced that at Queensland Raceway as well. Switching from the 5 now. Well, I say 5, but it's really still 4, because one of our circuit variations hasn't been used for a long time. It's if you want to do it, you can get down to operating that sort of thing pretty quickly. So yeah, credit to
So
those
this
who can
weekend
pull it off.
this weekend is the twin circuits, and that's there. So I'm not sure whether it's. I think it's the trucks still use the short circuit, or it's one or the other. But somebody uses the short circuit. But what they turned it over really quickly. I did a couple of truck meetings there, and they're lots of fun. The truck guys are. They're very, very keen, but they just don't have the numbers they used to. And it's really hard to just, like if you have a look at the smoke they're pouring into the atmosphere. Some of those foggy days, those still foggy days at Winton, and there's sort of this pall of diesel smoke hanging over the circuit for ages. It's it might be hard to justify with the EPA if you had a look at it, but they certainly worked hard. I know when I spoke to them a couple of years ago, they said, look, we are working hard to put an end to that, because they knew themselves that it didn't look particularly good in terms of being environmental and clean and green and there. 2-litre sports sedans racing up there as well. So they're racing with they've sort of broken away and are racing with double ASA now, because they can't get their own. There's no room for them for their own races in the state series, in the Cams or the Motorsport Australia state series down here, and they don't want to race with the outright guys, because it's just particularly for some of the slower cars, some of the Nissan Pulsars and a few other things. I mean, they're just they get blown away, because you've got some seriously fast cars running around at the top level of sports stand racing in Victoria.
Yeah, I hear the comparisons with what goes on in the Victorian Sports Car Championship as well, with the saturation of there's so many GT3 teams in Victoria, so the trickle down of proper GT3 machinery is right across the Victorian Sports Car Championship. So unless you've got some GT3 machinery, or at the very least a Carrera Cup car, you're going to struggle to even qualify for a sports car race in Victoria.
They sort of cracked down on that. We were sort of televising it at the time, not doing it live, but we were sort of running it on in pit lane. And when we put it up on the YouTube channel, we had people from all over the world going, "Oh my God, this is state racing!" Because it looked like state. You had all of the Audis and the Ferraris and Lamborghinis. You had Ted Hughlin had his Lamborghini out, and you had Alan Simonson would race there at times, and it's Mark saying which is faster, Pulsar or the Hyundais? I'm pretty sure it's the
Pulsars.
Pulsars.
Yes.
Yeah, the Pulsars. The Pulsars are surprisingly competitive. Considering the restrictions they're under, the Pulsars are surprisingly competitive with a lot of the dedicated sports sedans. Although increasingly we are seeing a few newer cars, or a few cars that we haven't seen race for a long time, because that's what happened. A lot of people have put their cars away and just said, "Oh, we're not going to bring them out anymore." Probably the fastest of them is the blue RX-7. Lee I've forgotten his last name now. Someone will tell me, Lee there, but it was blue RX-7 that actually was up at the front end of the pointy end of the outright sports sedans, especially if it was wet. Nissan powered, a Nissan 4-cylinder powered RX-7.
I know the.
Yeah, I've had him on the show many times. I'm having a major seniors moment in my life.
Was it the Lesser Irvin car? No, it wasn't. No, that's a later model. I can picture it as like a silver colored car, I think.
No, the silver car that that's very much an outright car. That's so I'm having just total brain fade now.
Well, there's a couple of RX-7
car. That's the turbocharged car that ran, and he used to bring it out sort of once a year, basically to the Phillip Island 50k plate, and usually if he didn't win, he'd certainly finish second or third. And
there's a couple of turbocharged non-rotary RX-7s in Sydney. That's with the Smith family.
Yeah, the Smith family. They're nice cars too. Really, they're really,
They are
really
definitely,
good cars.
yeah.
Yeah, so there's some good sports sedans running around in all the levels at the moment. I mean, you mentioned I saw some of your photos from the last round, the last state round
Yeah.
up there. And there's, I mean, that's what we always said. It would be really good to have that was what we were hoping to make sort of Ireland magic in terms of if you had something like they have in America with what used to be called the Valvoline runoffs. We would basically be a national champion. It would be the state level.
It still goes. Yep.
Yeah, so I think it's just the SCCA runoffs now, and we actually had Valvoline Australia would put up their hand to sponsor it, but the once again politics got in the road, and we went to a few people and said, hey, we can make this happen, and we could do it at Philomena. No, we're not having our tradition of done it, so it never got off but the idea was to take sort of, like basically the three top competitors where there was crossover, like Formula V, Formula Ford, Sports Sedan, improved production, take the top three competitors in each case and effectively give them free entry into this sort of one-off sort of end of year thing. And then at the end of it, they would be declared the national champion. So you'd have the improved production nationals would be there every year. You'd have the Formula V nationals there, the HQ nationals there every year. But interstate rivalries going. No, then it means we never see it up in Queensland, and we never see it in Northern Territory, and why is it going to be in Melbourne all the time? So it never happened. They were prepared to put like some pretty good money into it, but that was a long time ago now, and it just never happened.
Well, the American runoffs concept has been going since the 1950s, really, and it's core part of amateur level racing in America.
They used to call it over there. They used to call it the Olympics of the Olympics of grassroots motorsport. I think they used to call it. Because they get huge fields, and you see some amazing cars. And you used to see a lot of a lot of the old Formula 5000s and the old single seat Can-Am cars used to run. And you don't see as much of it now, but no. But it was live streamed. They still live stream it, I think. And
Road America this year.
Yeah, Road America.
Because It does move year to year. I guess like the national Australian single event nationals do, but the difference is they all go to the same venue each year. Whereas we share them each state it seems to have a nationals. But Road America this year. A few years ago, they had the SCCA runoffs at Indianapolis on the road course. It was immense. Oh, every category had bumper-sized grids because, I can imagine doing that at Bathurst. Everybody with you say, okay, Pulsar Nationals, beautiful. Everyone goes, because there's a chance to run at Bathurst, HQ Nationals, Saloon Car Nationals.
Just imagine, even the crowd you would get for something like the Pulsar Nationals, the Hyundai Nationals, the HQ Nationals, the Improved Production Nationals, Formula.
You could get 200 X3 XLs.
Oh God, you'd have huge fields, and you'd have to run it you'd have to run it basically for the week. But as we saw, sort of,
that's the format of the Nationals. It does last for a full week.
Yeah.
Mind you, there is also only one race.
Yes.
You have lots of practice sessions, then two qualifying sessions, but one race at the end of it.
Well, you wouldn't do that here, but I still think we have way too many races. I think it's ridiculous. As I said, you try and tell somebody like in mainstream media, someone who's not sort of involved in motorsport and is the sports editor of a newspaper or a radio station or a mainstream television news, and they'll say, okay, who won the big race? And it's like, well, actually there were three big races. And it's like, we don't have time for three. Who won the main race? Well, there isn't really a main race. Well, right, make a main race. So you basically go with who won the last race. as being the feature race, because that's all you've got time for, because they just want to know who won the race. They don't want to know, well, so-and-so won the first race, and then somebody else won the second race, and then so-and-so won the third race, and that meant overall that the overall victory went to the guy who finished third in all three races because he was consistent, even though he didn't win any of the races. They're not interested in that bullshit. It's like, who won the race?
A case in point is
I'm
Formula
hearing your
One.
voice, Brett, but it sounds like Tony Cochran.
Pete?
A case in point is when Formula One happens and there's not a sprint race, they mention the first practice session, then they don't mention anything for the whole weekend until much later in the day on a Sunday where qualifying sessions happened, and then the race.
Well, because you've got to fill up something when there's no football on. So
yeah, and that's the problem. I mean, usually there is football, and I mean, by the time you get through all the other sports that are, that are, whether people like it or not, are much more popular than motor racing. It's like, can we fit in some motor racing stuff? And that's what I've had the conversation. Okay, have we got time to fit in? It's like even it's like even on our shows, like whenever we do on In Pit Lane, we do the news every week, and why didn't you cover MotoGP? Why didn't you cover this? Why didn't you cover that? We simply don't have time. We have one news segment. It goes for about 5 minutes. And that's all the time. Otherwise, we could fill the whole program just as a half hour of news and absolutely nothing else. No interviews, no bands, no absolutely nothing, just the news. It would take huge resources. I'd like to do it, but it would take a full-time crew. I mean, I couldn't write half an hour of bloody news by myself in sort of, it's hard enough doing the 5 or 6 minutes that we do. But anyway, let's. You need two balls to really do sport. Well, it depends on what form of cricket you're playing. I've always preferred just the one ball. Actually, just let it go soft and misshapen and swing around a bit. I really think that's the best. That's the best thing if you're dealing with your balls. But
so much censoring, so little time.
Speaking of balls, okay, we're just there. I will just bring up some MotoGP stuff. New regulations coming in, basically pulling back some of the power, going to an 800cc maximum engine. This is from 2027. They're also going to they're really going to pull back on aerodynamics, because they're starting to see. I mean, they sort of poo-pooed aerodynamics for a while. I mean, it's not going to make any difference on a bike. Now they're going, oh, hang on a second. We don't want to let this genie out of the bottle. So they're going to pull back considerably on that. Also, whole shot devices and adjustable dynamic ride height adjustment during the race and sort of traction control. All of those sorts of things are going to be out the window. They're sort of going back to the past a little bit. They're saying, no, we want this to be a battle of riders. Unfortunately, most of the riders think it's a good thing. Some don't. I mean, there's a few who have just said, no, this should be the Formula One equivalent of on two wheels, and we should have more technology, and these things should be absolutely wild, even wilder than they are now. But anyway,
mind you, I am hearing 1990s Formula One regs screaming out at the moment. No more CVTs, no more active ride suspension, and that's the post Williams FW14B regulations.
Yeah, well, I think they've got to get on top of this, and I think it also frightens. I think the dual sort of thing about this is you've got companies like BMW, for instance, who are saying we might be interested. We'd be a lot more interested in MotoGP if it wasn't this sort of like this crazy sort of push for sort of basically prototypes that have absolutely nothing in common with the sort of bikes that we're selling. We're happy to stick with super bikes. So this is sort of it's sort of super bikes plus. It's going to be, they'll still be sort of dedicated race machines. They'll still be like prototypes, but they'll have a lot more restrictions on them, and They're also, of course, going to run on environmentally friendly sort of synthetic fuels and all that sort of stuff as well to do a bit of greenwashing and tick the box off there. But anyway, so that is coming up. As I said, if Doc gets up, Doc is very busy at the moment. Also, he's unfortunately his mum's not well at the moment as well. So cheers to Doc and. There. Now, I'll just say quickly, we're right out of time. We've gone over once again, but I'll let you know that this week on In Pit Lane, our special guest for most of the show is going to be the CEO of Motorsport Australia, the new CEO, Sunil Vora, will be joining us. As I said last week, if you've got any questions, we've already had some. Coming up this Tuesday. We'll be recording it. So tomorrow night on In Pit Lane on Channel 31, our guest will be Warren Heath from the Victorian Hill Climb Championship, and he'll be talking about hill climbing and the history of Rob Roy and plans for the Australian Hill Climb Championship, which are happening in Victoria later this year at Bryant Park. And so he's talked about that. We've also got our mate Mike Meeking in to sing some songs for us. And next week on the program, our band will be Gen 2, very popular local hard rock outfit. Their current single has had over 100,000 plays on Spotify. So they're a very popular local band, and they'll be joining us. We just found out literally it'll be a special sort of stripped down semi-acoustic version of it. We just found that out as we started the program, but. That'll mean it'll be easier for us to get them in and out, and it'll be great as well. So that's something different from Gen 2 coming up next week on the program. But until then, now next week for Full Course Yellow, won't be a program as such because I've got something else to do. But there might be something. There might be a special edition of Full Course Yellow at a different time from a different location. We might be doing a live stream from a major event that's happening. There will be a major announcement next Wednesday night here in Melbourne about a huge new event that is coming to Melbourne later on. And I can't say too much about it, but let's just say if you were a fan of Motor Classica, you should be very happy about this. That's being launched next week. We will be there, and I've sort of said to them, look, it's normally when we do Full Course Yellow, if we can bring along a bit of equipment and we can get a signal out of this particular venue, could we go live? And they're sort of talking about that. So we might be doing something live. It would be earlier in the night, probably around sort of 6:30 to 7:30. But it's going to be a very, very big event coming up. It's going to be launched at a very prestigious venue here in Melbourne, and hopefully we'll be able to do something live next week. So stay tuned for that. Keep an eye out on particularly the In Pit Lane YouTube channel and the Facebook page because we're doing it on location. Probably only going to be able to do it to one of those locations, and we'll let you know. Probably my choice would be on YouTube because it's a lot more reliable. So but if you haven't subscribed to the YouTube channel, please do so now and click the notification bell. And then whatever we put on, whether it's live or recorded, you'll get the notification. Hey, thanks guys and all that. Yeah, thanks Mark for that. Yeah, so she's been battling on for quite some time now, and she's there. So she's been moved down to Melbourne, and so she can get some specialist treatment. And Doc's sort of in and out of there along with his work commitments, and he works very long hours, so he's not available to come in with us. But he keeps getting in, and he'll join us tomorrow night on In Pit Lane, and also next week as well. When as I said, our special guest will be CEO of Motorsport Australia, Sunil Vora. And as I said, if you've got any questions, shoot them through to us on at the show at inpitlane.com. Okay, everybody, thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next week. I'm going to go and have some tea now.
Spa 6 hour this weekend. Go, Matt Campbell.
Yeah, Spar's good. And have a look around you. If you can't, there's usually somewhere you can watch it. That's all I'm saying. You'll find something. Trust me. I can't tell you where it is. I don't know myself yet. But trust me, you look hard enough, you will find it. That's certainly what happened at Imola. Be very, very quiet. Okay, we'll see you. We'll see you next week. We'll talk about Spa 6 Hour, no doubt. Ferrari's have got a big penalty too, for a BOP penalty, so they won't be happy. But it should be a great race. The lead up, of course, to Le Mans. Okay, everyone. We'll see you. We'll see you next week. Until then, bye, everybody.